We turn now to the economy, and we learned this week that the cost of things like food and energy rose compared to last month. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg joins us now. Good morning to you, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
As a representative of the administration, I do want to ask you a little bit about this reaction to the events in Buffalo. You were once a mayor. Do you think that there should be a federal law criminalizing domestic terrorism? The president used that phrase, but that's not really on the books.
I'll let the president speak to the legal outlook with regard to the definition of terrorism, but whether it's called that legally or not, this was terrorism, this was hate, and this would be a good day for every politician in this country, left, right, and center, every media figure in this country, left, right, and center, to come out and unequivocally condemn white nationalism, so-called replacement theory, and any other hateful ideology that could have contributed to something like this before it happens again.
But should there be a federal statute that elevates things when those terms you just threw out there? Should there be an association directly with terrorism?
Again, we don't know, obviously, all of the details that fit the legal definitions. What we know is that somebody traveled a long distance with an AR-15 to hunt human beings, to hunt black people. And we need to make sure that we root out that kind of hate. And, by the way, that we have a conversation about the availability of the kind of tactical weaponry that he seems to have had. And yet we seem to be having that conversation over and over and over again as a country.
I want to ask you a little bit on a personal note. We've been talking about this baby formula shortage nationwide that's been ongoing now for months. You have infants at home. Do you have problems getting hold of formula?
Yeah, this is very personal for us. We got 2 9-month-old children. Baby formula is a very big part of our lives. And like millions of Americans, we've been rooting around stores, checking online, getting in touch with relatives in other places where they don't have the same shortages to see what they can send over. And we figured it out. We're all set, at least for now. But I think about what that would be like if you're a shift worker with 2 jobs. Maybe you don't have a car. You literally don't have the time or the money to be going from store to store. That's why this is such a serious issue, and that's why it's getting attention at the highest levels, including, of course, direct involvement by the president.
Well, and this is going to be an issue Congress takes up this week. I know the president said more action's coming, but this has been ongoing for months. There were supply chain issues already. Then you have the issue with this one plant, Abbott, whistleblower in September, February, the recall. It's May. Why has it taken so long? And why did the president on Friday seem to say that it was new information to him? He said, if we'd been better mind readers, I guess we could have done something earlier.
Well, look, the administration acted from day one after the recall, taking steps like creating more flexibility for the WIC program to help rebalance the availability of formula in the states. There are more actions that are underway, including looking at imports. But fundamentally, we are here because a company was not able to guarantee that its plant was safe, and that plant has shut down.
But that is the federal government's job as regulators to help ensure
as
safety
regulators,
of the
yes,
plant.
but let's be very clear. This is a capitalist country. The government does not make baby formula, nor should it. Companies make formula. And one of those companies, a company which, by the way, seems to have 40% market share, messed up and is unable to confirm that a plant, a major plant, is safe and free of contamination. So the most important thing to do right now, of course, is to get that plant in Michigan up and running safely. And that's the work that's going on between the company and the FDA. It's got to be safe, and it's got to be up and running as soon as possible. But this is the difference between a supply chain problem, in other words, a problem about moving goods around, and a supply problem, which has to do with whether they're being produced in the first place. Now, the administration's also been working with other companies to try to surge their production. That's led to an increase in production, which is helping to compensate. But at the end of the day, this plant needs to come back online safely.
And we'll have more on that later in the show, but because I know you're not the FDA commissioner, let me talk to you about the things you are involved more in, which is supply chain and procurement. How is the administration making sure that those essential ingredients that are actually required for something like formula are actually available?
So a shortage of ingredients is not what led to the shutdown of the facility,
it is
right?
a factor that has led to price inflation. Is one of the factors among many that has been blamed for months of problems with baby formula, even before the recall in February.
Right, but America has the productive capacity to create the baby formula that we need.
But you're trying to bring it in from Europe right now.
Right, but that's because, again, we've got 4 companies making about 90% of the formula in this country, which we should probably take a look at. And
is that an oligopoly?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a series of monopolies that have added up into enormous market concentration. By the way, this is an issue the president has been talking about in area after area after area, whether we're talking about fertilizer, whether we're talking about other things in our agriculture sector, or more generally.
Because this is also part of, I'm using the term food stamp program, but it's a part of a government assistance program.
Which is exactly why, again, from day one, after the recall.
This isn't just a private sector problem, is my point. The federal government is directly involved in some of these arrangements.
A plant shutting down because a company can't assure that it is physically safe from contamination is the responsibility of the company. The responsibility of the regulator is to ensure, as they take steps to get it ready, that it will in fact be safe when it comes back online.
I have so much more to get to you as well. I want to get you on inflation. Gas prices, highest ever price in the country, $445 a gallon national average. Are you asking Americans to drive less?
No, what we're asking Americans to do is to obviously recognize that we're working this issue because we're feeling it too. I mean, all of us see that pain at the pump.
Should Americans drive less?
Look, what we want to do is create options for Americans to be able to get where they're going more affordably. It's why we upped the fuel economy standards so that by the 2026 model year, the cars will be so much more efficient if you have a gas car. That if you used to have to fill up 4 times a month, it might be 3 now. Of course, we're also working to make electric vehicles more affordable because that has a huge benefit, especially in terms of protecting families from these kinds of price
battery
volatility.
Components are also a supply chain issue.
Right. So are we going to take that as an excuse to do nothing and do the same thing forever, or are we going to take that as an issue to work? We're taking it as an issue to work on, but right now, with existing technology, we know that we can get more Americans into these vehicles. And we also know, right, that with gas prices on the rise, and the president's acted with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, he's acted with ethanol flexibility to try to stabilize those prices. But we also know right now that we could be lowering other costs for Americans. And this is the most important thing I think we need to take a hard look at right now when we're fighting inflation with everything that we've got. That we made the case to lower the cost of insulin to $35 and faced basically unified Republican opposition, tried to lower the cost of prescription drugs and were blocked from doing so. By congressional Republicans who then come around and want to talk about inflation without offering a plan.
The public isn't interested in things that didn't work, right, or didn't pass or aren't law. They want to know what's going on right now at their kitchen table and in their pocketbooks.
Well, I think they want to know what Congress is going to do to lower their costs, and we're making the case for that to happen.
I want to ask you about what the administration thinks in regard to what some congressional Democrats, like Senator Warren, Speaker Pelosi also says she's putting forward a bill about price gouging by companies and banning unconsciously excessive pricing. This has been called dangerous and misguided nonsense by the Obama administration economic advisor Jason Furman. Do you agree that it is nonsense?
I'm not familiar with all of the details of that legislation, but what I can tell you from an administration perspective is that there is guidance going out to crack down on price gouging where we see it. If price gouging arises in the formula market or the fuel market. Look, one thing that we know is that we're in this moment, right, where Americans are feeling the pinch on product after product. And some companies have become ridiculously profitable, notably including oil companies, which have specifically said they're not going to use the permits and the production capacity that they have. Why would they? They're incredibly profitable right now. They're not complaining. They're not unhappy about the situation. The public is unhappy. The president is unhappy. And we're taking action.
We're going to leave it there. Secretary Buttigieg, good to have you here in person. And good luck with the baby formula. Face the Nation. We'll be right back.